Je pense que ça marche. Super. Alors, bienvenue, bonjour. Today I want to chat about Mabel. Si vous êtes ici, dites bonjour. Je garde mon téléphone. Si je regarde en bas, c'est mon téléphone. Je veux vérifier si vous êtes ici, qui est là et qui va me poser des questions. Who is here? Who's going to ask me questions? But this is a video that I wanted to put together to talk to you about why many learners, like Mabel, get stuck calling themselves and self-labeling themselves beginners, and they can be beginners forever. Number one disclaimer is that Mabel is not a real person. So if your name is Mabel, je suis désolée, and I will send you a private message, write to me to complain if I've picked the wrong name. But I've made up Mabel to show you a combination of three people who I've been able to help along the way so that they could stop self-labeling, and I don't want to use real name, hence Mabel. So Mabel is a woman who's been learning French for quite a few years, and she's still at the beginner stage. And my second disclaimer is that it's absolutely fine to be a French beginner, and you might want to reach that level, and that is the level that you chose. You're happy with what you can do at that level, and you're going to move on and do German, maybe to intermediate level, and Russian to advanced level. I know lots of polyglots, and I've been lucky to go to conferences and meet people who can speak many languages, 3, 5, 35 languages, at different varying levels. And I think if your intention is to be a beginner and learn some basics for French, and you're there, bravo, well done. However, these are ladies who self-label. This is Mabel, this combination of my three ladies, who's self-labeled as beginner but isn't happy about that status. So that's what this is about. So if I just want to give you some context. So if you're not happy about being a beginner because it's been X amount of time that you've been learning and you want to move beyond this phase, these are the things that are characteristic of her. And I have 9, and I have 9 solutions and tips for you to be able to get past that. I will also be reminding you that our program to move beyond beginner French is open until tomorrow. So if you want to jump on, I'd love to have you in there. But this is really the portrait of Mabel and the things that might resonate with you and tips that you can learn from. Whether you join our program or not, you will learn a few things. So one of the things that is keeping her in what I call dabble mode, you're just dabbling, playing, not really taking it seriously, not really putting skin in the game, setting a firm goal, maybe investing in your learning, whether it's time or money, and really setting yourself up for success. You're just dabbling, you're just having a little play with French. When you start feeling stuck in that mode, there are a few things. So one of the complaints is, I just know bits of French in my head. And you might be saying that a lot. Another is feeling wobbly or not having enough confidence. That can be number 2. 3, nothing's really structured. There's no clear way, there's no structure to the information you've gathered. And often, the more you add to it and the longer you stay in this double phase, the more unstructured it feels, because you actually have quite a bit of French accumulated and there's just no structure to them, and you don't know how to start putting them in a workable, in a coherent sentence, really, is what often it is. It's the bit that's missing is the glue to put it all together. So no structure. 4, you might be unsure how to ask questions, or you might not be able to ask questions at all. There's things you want to ask if you're in a situation where you can use your French. You might have overheard someone speaking, or you might be in France and you want to converse with someone, or you're part of a conversation and you want to break into it. You're unsure how to ask things and you can't ask That skill of asking question is one specific thing you can work on and identify. The other thing is you're unsure of something that you've learned. You might be using Duolingo French, like a lot of you do, and you worked out through error something that you understand is now wrong, and you understand the right thing, but you're unsure why, and you don't have anyone to ask and get answers from. So you're still in dabble mode from that point of view. You're not sure how to pronounce certain things, so you can see them, you can even interpret them and know what they mean, but you can't quite be sure how to pronounce them. You have nobody to practice with is another one. You understand a little bit of when you hear French, but it's often too fast, or it's always too fast. You study alone, so it's easy for you to skip a session, and that can become 2, 5, a few weeks worth of sessions. You hold this belief that you're never going to improve until you move there. And I can tell you from experience as a teacher that you can reach fluency without setting foot in France. I've helped students on their journeys, and it's absolutely doable. If you think of the amount of people who speak very good English in destinations that you've been on holiday, and maybe developing countries where you know that they don't have their passport filled with travel stamps, they may have never left their country, but the level of English is extremely high. So you don't need to move to a country, a French-speaking country, to become fluent in French. They might also, what's my last one? Not have a set goal. That was my number 9. Mabel doesn't have a set goal, and she gets stuck in this dabbling of French mode because of that. So let's take each one at a time. Bits of French. If you have bits of French together just floating around in your head, it's important to organize them into things that you can say and things that you can ask, because conversations is a two-way function. I like to think of it as a ping pong game. You throw the ball, the other person has to hit it back to you, and then you have to hit it back. And there's quite a few skills in that. You need to be able to say something in a way that's coherent, so assembling it correctly, remembering those tricky words that are in there, potentially some conjugation that's in there. They need to hit it back, so they need to then be able to ask a question or make an interjections, like a comment. You can agree with someone, disagree, ask for more information, ask for clarification, encourage them, cheer them on, and commiserate with them if they've just shared something that's sad. There's so many different reactions that need to happen, and they're things that you can work on and accumulate. So you've got quite a list already if you just write the ones I just shared. And the skill of asking question and commenting back is just as important as assembling and structuring sentences. And through practice, you will notice that you often have a thought of what you want to say, but you don't have the skills underneath to say exactly that. So there's a step there where you need to simplify what you would ideally be able to say. You might need to put that in the later basket and simplify that thought to be able to express it with what you currently have. So you might not know all the tenses yet, all the words, all the idiomatic expressions, sometimes you don't know the short way to say it. You have to say it with a few more words. These are things that with practice, you will learn how to do. This is simplifying and a way to kind of pivot from what you were going to say and find another way to say it, or a slightly different way to explain it. Same thing if you're on the receiving end of the conversation, someone will speak to you and you need that to be simplified. So learning the skills to slow down the conversation, get clarifications, ask someone to repeat or to explain a certain word in the sentence, sometimes asking them to spell it. These are all things that are going to help you say and ask so that those bits of French can start being used. When you're feeling wobbly and with no confidence, if I go back to Mabel, who complains about that, her French foundations are a bit wobbly and she's lacking that confidence, it's often that when we self-learn, or we learn with apps, or even sometimes in a classroom, if there's not the space and the time built in, you just learn some, and then you just learn some more, and you learn some more, and you keep adding to it, which is not creating any strong foundations. What you need to do is at least have a learning phase and then a practice phase and a learning phase. And there's a bit more to it. And I have a 5-step framework, which I presented in my How to Move Beyond Beginner French masterclass on Monday. And the replay is still going to be up until the doors close tomorrow night. So if you have the replay link, go and watch it before it disappears. If you want to know more about this method and this framework to get some stronger foundations and actually make progress in your French, ask me below. I will happily share it. And the next thing is the lack of structure. To get a clear structure, we often have to put blinkers on. And it's one of the commitments that I ask for every participant in Beyond Beginner French. And I get a bit ranty, but I need the distractions to stop so that we can actually start organizing what we currently have. Sometimes the key to having your first confidence conversation is not adding more French, but actually structuring what you already have. And there's a bit of resistance at the start, and then the students go, oh, I can just organize what I already know, add like half the amount of things, ask my brain to remember half the amount of things, and actually unlock a conversation with what I already have. You usually don't actually need to add more and more and more and more French, more vocab, more grammar, structure, more rules about exceptions, but you need to structure what you have. So we put on blinkers for 3 full months while I support students from going from this dabbling mode to actually be able to converse in French. And it's very exciting to see, because isn't it amazing that we don't have to actually add all that much French. Number 4 is when you feel unsure and you cannot ask someone, try to find a way to do that. If you don't have a teacher, it does get tricky. If you know a French person, they might not always understand the rules of their own language. They'll know what's right and what's not. But I always use the example of, if I ask my sister to explain certain things in French, she's not a teacher, she won't be able to do it. If someone was to ask you, when do I use how much versus how many? I don't understand, please explain the difference between how much or how many. If you've never taught that rule, you might not be able to do that, even though you would never use one when the other one is needed. It just comes naturally to you. The rule is inbuilt to you as a native speaker. It doesn't necessarily mean. So I always think, be careful who you ask for when you're unsure and you can't ask. But Google is a great place to look for information, and your teacher or someone who you follow and will be able to help you along the way. And in our program, we have a Facebook group where I answer questions for the 3 months, give feedback on pronunciation, up-leveling of the word, clarifying of the grammar, and also using some discernment around, this is a mistake that doesn't matter, and this is a mistake that will cause a misunderstanding, and they're not all equal. So if you say le banane instead of la banane, completely doesn't matter in terms of conversation. But if you mispronounce banane to the point that no one knows what you're saying, then that's going to stop the conversation. So try and apply some discernment around, does this mistake matter or does it not? And if you've got a perfectionist mentality or a personality, I always think it's a hard thing to overcome, and you really need to work on the mindset of, I need to embrace being a beginner, embrace that beginner's mindset, accept my mistakes, and you'll be a much smarter learner for it. If you keep resisting it, you'll probably be stuck at the level you're at for a lot longer than you need to. So embrace making mistakes. That's quatre. Cinq. I've got a list because there's so many criteria that could keep you stuck at that beginner dabbling mode. Cinq is not sure how to pronounce things. So one of the most heartbreaking thing for me is when someone comes to learn with French Speak and then they go in the wild world and they go and use their French and they're not understood. And quite often it's the other way around. Someone has done some French learning in whatever format it was, in a big classroom, one-on-one with a teacher, quite often self-studying, and they will go and they know quite a bit, but when they go and use their French, they're met with English as a barrage automatically. No one will give them the time to work through their sentences, their questions, but also if they do, they can just see from the other person's face that they didn't understand what they meant. And it's often not down to grammar, it's often down to your pronunciation. So making sure to learn less, sometimes compromise learning less, to prioritize that you can say those words and pronounce them with the right accent. You don't need to sound like a French person when you say it, you just need to pronounce it correctly with your own accent. And we already have people in the program from England and the US and Australia. So there's going to be lots of different accents just in the English language, and everyone understands each other. When you learn French, you carry that accent into it, but there's some pronunciation rules that you already know are quite different. We want to make sure that whatever you pronounce is said in a way that you will be understood. And we practice that, and we learn the theory, and then we apply, and then we practice it, and we go back and revise that theory when things slip. So pronunciation is something that I'm very passionate about, because it is just too heartbreaking to imagine someone can say all of this, but then when they actually come out of their mouth, no one understands what they're saying. So if you are here, I'm seeing a few people come on live. Bonjour, bonsoir. I'm talking about this made-up person, Mabel, who's a combination of 3 of the learners that I've helped before to go from dabbling in French, knowing bits and pieces, to actually be able to become conversational. And when I put together their main things that were stopping them and what in the Beyond Beginner French program helps them, there's a lot of things that whether you're in the program that starts on Monday or not, you'll be able to apply. So I'm hoping that these resonate. If they do, please put something in the comments. Tell me you are seeing me, hearing me, and it's making sense. I'm seeing. Merci, Susan. I can see you. Je vous vois. Super. We are halfway there. Numéro 6 is the understanding part. So sometimes we have the skills to make sentences. We have the skills to make questions that will move the conversation along or open up a conversation. But the minute the other person starts speaking, we're out. That could be a listening and comprehending problem. It could be deciphering what they were saying. It could be a lack of vocabulary or a lack of understanding of the structure of sentence that they're using. There's a range of things that could be the source, but a lot of the time we focus more on reading. We get much better readers, sometimes intermediate level readers, but we still can't have a basic conversation, and that breaks my heart. So listening is really important, and in the program we have weekly conversation practice, so the speaking and the listening combined. And if you're not doing a program like this, make sure to balance out your speaking and your listening, but also pause on the reading for a little while and do more production activities, so you get your French out there and put yourself in situations where you're going to have to hear and understand what another speaker is saying, to keep working on your listening and we have some audio exercises that we do in the program to really help the listening, because it's half of the conversation. If you can only speak and you can't understand, it's game over. It's the end of that chat. Numéro 7 is that when you're alone, Mabel will just decide to skip this lesson and skip that one and skip that one. So joining a program can really help you gain that momentum. Having accountability is the key here. So you can create your own by making your goal something that you share with family and friends. You make it a priority in your life. That means that if you're getting serious about French, you'd probably have to turn off some other activities for that amount of time. We're doing a 3-month sprint. So people go, okay, for those 3 months, I might not have as much time doing Netflix or crafts or gardening, but I'm prioritizing French for a while. And then the other things will come back. It's just a phase in life. But you do need to, if you're going to improve and do more French and make more progress, probably look at what your life currently looks like and find some extra pockets. Accountability is really important because life is busy. I'm just saying everyone has a busy life. And I'm assuming in my programs and with my lessons that everyone has a busy life. And everyone's going to tell me that they had a busy week. And that we just need to prepare for when life is extra busy, when it's an extra busy week. How are we going to still sprinkle a little bit of French in our week? And making that decision ahead of time. What's the minimum I'm going to do when it's not just busy, it's extra busy, is the key to keep that momentum going. I spoke about my snowball analogy in a previous video, but that's what you want to do. You keep on adding a little bit of snow, rolling that snowball, and not just abandoning it and hoping that in a week's time it'll still be there, because our memory does not work like that. We need to just keep moving it. So you're setting up and to keep up momentum every week. You keep going. And I wrote that way you can never feel like a failure, because whether you do a big progress that week or small progress that week, you're still, or maintenance that week, you're still keeping your French going. Numéro 8 is the belief that you need to move there. I talked about that already. I've even had a student move to a French-speaking country, to Switzerland, and after 6 months of living there, immersed as an expat and staying away from as many English speakers, because of course, going somewhere to France by yourself or a French-speaking country versus traveling with English speakers has a very different impact on your French. But immersed for 6 months as an expat as a minority English speaker surrounded by French made less progress than 2 months of lessons, and we were doing 2 hours a week. So focused learning will get you more results than just passive absorption here and there. And you need the structure, and teachers are very good at getting results for your French. So it's important. It's important, and you do not need to move to Paris. Then I have the last one. I think I'm at the bottom of my list, which is not setting goals. If you're in double mode, like Mabel, you don't set goals. You just have a grandiose goal of speaking French fluently one day. That can be quite vague and quite hard. So what I'm getting you to focus on, whether you start a program that has a specific goal or you set one yourself, it's still the start of the year, Février, you can aim for a clearer goal. And if your clear goal is just, I want to be able to converse, I want you to think of scaffolding that conversation. You probably have a lot to already start putting that together. If you think of saying something like, I love French, that can, conversing about your love of French, j'aime le français, can be your starting point. You can build that up to so many things, to different questions. How many times have you been there? How many things are you able to do? How many years have you been learning French, with those kind of questions? Or what's it like? How different is life in France? You can ask, you can share an experience and say that you went there last year for a month. To be able to share, I went there, to be able to share any experience, you're going to need the past tense. And we make sure there are several past tenses in English and in French. You can say, I visited, I've visited, I had visited, I was visiting, I used to visit. There's so many ways. I would have visited. All of these have a past element, but you don't need to know all of them at the start. And that's why when I set up my program, I'm always thinking of the maximum effect for the lowest effort. It makes me sound a bit lazy, but it's what's the shortest way we can get there? And that might mean, again, putting blinkers on and sometimes simplifying what you want to say, but still having that conversation. You can still have a conversation about your love of France, so the French language, by knowing one past tense, and we focus on passé composé in month 2. We do présent first, then passé composé, and then in a conversation about sharing your love of France, you'll be able to ask people, when do you plan to go there? Or are you going, they've just told you maybe that they're going to France, and you can say, where in France will you be going? Are you going to go using a future? So in month 3 of Beyond Beginner French, we focus on one of the futures to also open up that door to express, ask questions, talk about future plans. So past experiences, future plans, and everything that's relevant to you today. So talking about the weather, your likes and dislikes, your personal life, your work, your family, all of those conversations you can mainly do in French with présent. And then to share your past experiences, we focus on that in month 2 and in month 3. But you can set yourself up what your goals are for each conversation topic. Even if you make your goal as small as, j'adore la France, I love France. You don't know what the other person is going to come back with, but those can be some little starting leads to get you going. So I hope that you can see that you don't need to move over to France or get a new brain or spend too long to be able to transform what you already have, the basic things that you have, into full conversations. But it's important to set goals. It's important to keep the momentum going. And sometimes having an extra hand, a helping hand, helps. So I would like to invite you in to Beyond Beginner French, which is my 3-month program, which is starting on Monday. We're closing the doors tomorrow so that this weekend I can put the timetable together for all the live calls. You'll have 12 opportunities to practice live, some monthly live calls for Q&As with me, some monthly pronunciation workshops where you get to learn and practice what your pronunciation is like, as well as some listening. And we focus on only 3 topics and 3 big pillars of grammar so that you can have really good conversations. Voilà, mes amis. Let me know if any of the things that I shared today don't make sense or do make sense and you agree. If you are here, if you want me to clarify anything, dites-moi dans les commentaires et à bientôt.